Okay, welcome everybody to another phrasal verbs lesson. This phrasal verbs lesson will still be working from the Advanced Phrasal Verbs book by Michael McCarthy and Felicity Odell, I think, but it's Cambridge University Press. It's called Advanced Phrasal Verbs. You will find it. It will be the first thing you find if you look for it on Google. And today we're looking at chapters 31 to 35. And chapter 31 only focuses on phrasal verbs which are used very often in the imperative as an instruction or an order, something like that. So the first one I think is quite rare, take it away, and it's used usually in entertainment, in a performance. The singer might say to his band, take it away, and it means start playing the song. But the presenter of the TV show could say to the group, the band, the musician, the singer, take it away. And it means start singing, start performing. So quite a rare one. You can only use it if you mean start singing or start performing. And if you keep an eye out for, if you listen out for this phrasal verb on entertainment shows, you probably will hear it at some stage. Okay, if the presenter says give it up for the next group, he is asking the audience to clap. He's asking for an applause. So when he says give it up for the next act, he means please put your hands together. That's another way they say it, put your hands together. So that's another one, put your hands together, meaning clap. Now is the time to start clapping. Put your hands together. It's a signal to the audience that they start clapping. Give it up for the next act. Give it up for the next people that are performing, whoever they may be. It could be a musician, could be a singer, it could be anybody who's performing. It doesn't have to be a singer or a musician. Okay, if you say go ahead, it means please do what you're going to do. Please go ahead and do it. So if a student in the class or a pupil says, Dave, can I go to toilet? I might say, go ahead. And it means, go on, go to toilet. Do what you want to do. It's basically when you give permission to someone to do what they want to do. But not just give permission, but instruct them to do it. So go ahead is very common, and it just means do what you have asked to do, or do what you would like to do what you want to do. So you might be at a restaurant and your friend says, can I get you a drink? Can I get you a beer, Dave? I'll probably say, go ahead. I would love a beer. Okay, if you say go on or come on or go for it, this is very often used as a way of encouraging a sportsman. So if you're in the audience, if you're among the spectators at a football match, you might be shouting, go on, come on. In fact, we very often will shout, go on or come on to encourage our football team. But it could be at the Olympics when we're encouraging our runner or our swimmer, whoever it is. This is a way of encouraging people. I could even use it on pupils as well if they're struggling with, perhaps they're struggling with whatever they're supposed to be doing, and I say, come on, go on, meaning, come on, you can do it. Don't give up, you can do it. Go for it, do your best. Yeah, so it's just a way of encouraging sportsmen or maybe other people, but usually sportsmen. If you say hang in there or keep it up, it means don't give up. It means, you know, you'll often say, again at a football match, you might say hang in there, meaning don't give up, you're going to win, come on, go for it. But whereas these are words of encouragement, just general encouragement, meaning you can do it, these are more likely to mean don't give up, you're almost there, you're almost at the finish line, you can reach it, you can reach your goal, hang in there, keep it up. So it doesn't have to be sport. You could say it to someone who has a certain project and they haven't quite finished it, and you want them to see the project through. You want them to complete the project. And so you say, hang in there, don't give up, keep it up, keep going. Okay, if you say roll on Monday, it means you really want Monday to come as soon as possible. It means something exciting is happening on Monday. Maybe there's a party you're going to go to, so you say roll on Monday. Maybe it's a day off, maybe it's a bank holiday, and so you say roll on Monday. And it means come on Monday, I want you to come as soon as possible because I'm looking forward to that day. So you might say roll on Christmas if you're looking forward to Christmas, or roll on the weekend if you can't wait to finish work for a couple of days and enjoy yourself. Okay, if you say pipe down, it means quieten down. It means please, shut up would be a rude way of saying it. This is perhaps a little bit less rude than shut up, although I wouldn't say it to an adult if you don't want to offend them. I think teachers in classes very often say quieten down, which is a nice polite way of saying, you know, make less noise. But pipe down would be a little bit ruder than quieten down, but not quite as rude as shut up. Now, if you don't believe what somebody's telling you, if you think they are pulling your leg, if you think they are kidding, you might say, come off it. And this is very common, this one, come off it. I don't believe that. What a load of rubbish. So if I read the newspapers or watch the news on TV, most of the time these words are running through my mind of come off it. That just isn't true. That's obviously a load of rubbish. That's set up. There's a lot of stuff which makes you think, come on. So even come on, which could be a word of encouragement, it can also be disbelief, shock at the rubbish that you're hearing. You say, come on, that can't be true. You're pulling my leg. Okay? So dream on is what you might say to someone if you think they're being too hopelessly optimistic about something. Perhaps they think that they're going to be the next superstar, the next... perhaps they think they're going to play for Manchester United because they're so good at football, and you might think, dream on, that's never going to happen. There's a lot of competition in this sport, and there are a lot of other youngsters who also would like to play for Manchester United, so dream on is probably not going to happen. Okay, if you say cut it out, knock it off, or leave off, it's when you're annoyed with someone's behaviour. Very often parents would say this to their kids. Maybe you're on a long car trip and your kids are in the back and they're arguing again. You might say, cut it out, knock it off, leave off, stop bickering. Bicker is another word which we use for argue. It's not a phrasal verb, but it's quite a good one. And so if they're bickering in the back, you might tell them to cut it out, to knock it off, to leave off. So it's when you tell people to stop doing something annoying. If you want someone to wait, you might say hang on, hang about, hold on. All of those means wait. All of those mean wait a second. You know, wait a second. Hang on, hold on, hang about. So they all mean wait, basically. Listen up means listen carefully. I'm going to say something important. So listen up. I'm going to describe some more phrasal verbs. Be attentive. And if you go easy on someone means that for some reason you don't go hard on them. Go easy on someone. If you're a teacher, maybe someone has misbehaved, and if you go easy on them, you give them a very lenient, light punishment. You go easy on them. But it doesn't have to be used in that way. Maybe you have a test for the students, for the pupils, because they've had a long break in the summer, you decide to go easy on them and make the test quite easy. So to go easy on someone means to treat them delicately and carefully in a fragile way, because you don't want to make things too difficult for them. Okay, if you're the manager of a company, you might farm out some jobs to another country because you can't afford to pay the workers in your country. Farm out always means delegate. It could also mean when you farm out jobs, you usually give those jobs to another company. If you farm out a part of the business, you maybe sell that, you hive off that part of the business, you sell it off, you separate it and sell it, and then farm out that part of the business to another country. So to farm out is basically to delegate. You could delegate jobs to another place, or you could farm out all sorts of things. You could farm out your projects to another place because they can do it at a much cheaper price. Okay, if you slog or slave away, you work really hard and it sounds negative. It sounds like you're doing loads of work and that you shouldn't actually be doing that much work. So if you're working for a particularly unreasonable boss, you might say that you've been slogging away for ages, you've been slaving away, because otherwise you'll lose your job or your salary will be cut or something like that. But beaver away or plug away is positive, really. These ones are positive, and it means that you're working hard. It's the same thing as slog away or slave away, but it sounds like it's a good thing that you're working hard. So all students ought to beaver away before their exams, yeah? They ought to knuckle down or buckle down. Now, this one's more neutral, but again, it's the same. If you knuckle down or buckle down, you start working hard, okay? If you fling yourself into your studies, it basically means you bury yourself in your books. You start applying yourself to your studies with maximum enthusiasm and maximum effort. So flinging yourself into your studies or into your work, it could be at work, it means you start working as hard as you can and enthusiastically. Now, if you have a project, you ought to see it through, which means keep going, don't give up, and complete the project, yeah? To see it through to the end. You see a project through to the end. You complete the project. So it's very positive to see something through. You ought to see through all your projects, otherwise you're a quitter. You give up at the first hurdle. Now, if you step aside, this basically means step down, and you ought to remember that one, because step down means resign, but step aside means step down in order that somebody else takes your position. So if the Deputy Prime Minister steps aside, perhaps it's in the middle of a scandal, and he steps aside in order to let somebody else take his position, it means he steps down to let someone take his position, to let someone take his job. So very similar, but there's always got to be someone waiting when you say step aside to fill your shoes. Now, if you get bogged down in work, you get bogged down in a project or get bogged down with work, that means get bogged down, it sounds like you're stuck in the mud. When you get a bog, is a muddy swamp. And so if you are bogged down with work, it means you are snowed under. Very similar to be snowed under. And this one means to be really busy. To have loads and loads and loads of work, to be snowed under. Very similar to get bogged down. To get bogged down at work, it would mean that you've got loads and loads and loads of work, and so you're slogging away, you're slaving away. Now, if you are not cut out for something, it means you are not up to doing it. You're not capable of doing it when you're not cut out for something. So I am not cut out for a marathon. I already know that I'm not capable of doing that. Well, perhaps I would be with a lot of training, but I don't even fancy doing that. I don't feel up to doing a marathon, and so I'm not going to. I like sport, by the way. I do enjoy football. I play football on Mondays, and I certainly feel up to doing that. I'm certainly cut out for that, but it's only 1 hour. It's 2 games for half an hour, and I'm certainly capable of running around for an hour, and I think it's very good to do so as well. It keeps you fit. Now, if you cobble something together, you might cobble together an essay with a few different ideas. It means put something together, to cobble something together. So, yeah, basically put something together, but you could use it with essays. You could cobble together an essay, but you might cobble together a plan or some kind of draft. You could cobble together a draft or a plan or anything like that which you're putting together, maybe for work, maybe for school. Now, if you pack in your job or jack in your job, you resign. So that's a nice easy one. It just means resign. You step down, you resign. This step down and step aside are very formal. Pack and jack your job in are very informal. It's what you'd say to your friends down the pub, but, you know, I've decided to pack in my job, it's annoying me. Maybe you decide to pack it in because the boss keeps passing you over for promotion. So to get passed over for promotion means to be forgotten, to not be promoted. Somebody else got the promotion. So that might cause you to pack the job in. Now, if you call out a plumber or you call out an electrician, it sounds like you have a plumbing emergency or an electrical emergency. And so you call out the plumber, you call out the electrician for emergency support, for aid, for assistance, for help as soon as possible. But remember that it has got a second meaning. To call someone out on their mistakes is to bring their mistakes to their attention. It's to notice their mistakes and tell them their mistakes. So quite a few people call me out on my mistakes on these videos. They write them underneath, and if I'm in a particularly good mood and it's a very clearly written sentence, I'll hold my hands up and say, yes, I am mistaken, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right, thank you for calling me out on my mistake. But if I'm in a bad mood, I might just delete the comment and ban you from the channel. I'm quite unfair in that sense. Okay, you get off work at a certain time. You knock off work at a certain time. It means you finish work. That's all. You get off work, you knock off work. Quite common, often used for work, but it could be used for school. The kids knock off school at 3:30. So just finish those two. When you hand something in, it means that you have a document or a piece of homework which has to be handed to the relevant authority. So homework has to be handed in to the teacher, usually. But if you're applying for a visa, you might have to hand your documents in to the visa centre, or you might have to hand in some documents to the embassy. Could be either. Now, if you ease off, you slow down or relax in some kind of way. If you say that sales of ice cream ease off in the winter, it means that sales of ice cream decrease. There aren't so many. There's not such a big market. But you could also say he eased his foot off the accelerator, meaning that he took his foot slowly off the accelerator and started to slow down. But you could say the rain is starting to ease off, or the traffic is starting to ease off. So it can be used in a lot of different ways to ease off, and it basically means to be reduced, or to quieten down, or to relax in some kind of way. If you go through a divorce or get through a divorce, I mentioned this in the previous class, it means that if you get through it, you've finished going through it, and if you go through it, you're just in the process. But get always means to finish in some kind of way. So yeah, you get through it, and you're finished. All of the details of the contract have been ironed out, they've been firmed up, and that means that you're now officially divorced. You've finished it. But go through would mean to be in the process of a difficulty. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be used with divorces. It can be used with anything that's difficult. You can get through your exams. Some of you may be still going through a difficult period in your life for one reason or another. So it could be with any difficult period. These two, though, are very often used with exams. If you scrape through your exams, you only just pass. Only just. You're a borderline pass. But if you sail through them, you pass with flying colours, we say. You get really good marks. Now, if the teacher marks you down, it means that you do something wrong, and for that reason, you get a much lower mark. So, I mean, I think students very often get marked down for mistakes. Of course they do. In written essays, usually it's mistakes that will mark you down more than anything. You know, the teacher will mark you down due to your mistakes more than anything else. Content is important as well, but it's secondary really. Try never to make mistakes when you're writing English essays, otherwise you will be marked down. Fall behind. Students fall behind in their subject when they're not doing their homework, or maybe they're off for a few weeks because they have a holiday or they have an injury, and then they might fall behind the rest of the class, in which case they need to catch up with their schoolmates, with their classmates. So you don't want to fall behind really. You want to stay at the same level as everybody else. Now, if you read something quickly, you skim through the book, you leaf through the pages, you flick through the articles, you thumb through the questions, whatever it is that you're reading quickly, you can do all of those with any kind of paper document or book or exam or anything like that. If you've got a list, You can tick the names off, you can cross the names off, you can check the names off. All of those mean to basically, you know, this or this or this, something like that. It's just put a symbol next to the name. So when the teacher takes the register, they check the names off, they tick the names off, they cross the names off. They reel off the names, first of all. Don't forget, reel off means to say a list of names or a list of countries or a list of dates. You reel off a list. And then you tick the names off or cross the names off or check the names off. If you pore over documents, you scrutinise them. You look at them for a long time in order to fully comprehend them. In order to take in all the information in that document, you have to pore over it first. Now, you might need to bury yourself in the documents in order to thoroughly understand them, in which case you might fling yourself into the work in order to thoroughly comprehend it. Now, if you're a student, your teacher might say that this exam will count towards your final grade or your final mark, meaning that this exam counts, yeah? That it has some weight in your final mark, in your final percentage or your final grade for the year. And they may say that any questions that you get wrong will count against you, meaning that it will take down your final grade. Your final grade will be marked down if you make any of these mistakes. These mistakes will count against you. So count towards and count against are also very useful for students. Now, if you deprive someone of their human rights, you take away their human rights in some kind of way. But if you deprive someone of food, you don't give them enough food. If you deprive someone of information, you don't give them enough information. So you can deprive someone of anything, and it's always related to a lack of something. It's when you don't allow someone to have something which they really need. If you devote yourself, look at that terrible spelling, sorry about that, one self with an E, with two E's. If you devote yourself to a project, you 100% throw yourself into that project. You fling yourself into that project, yeah? Throw yourself into is also correct. You enthusiastically apply yourself to that goal. You aim at that goal and you devote yourself to it. Remember that devotion is a very strong word. Husbands should be devoted to their wives and wives should be devoted to their husbands. And very often at the start of the book, at the start of a book, you may see the words, this book is not devoted to, actually, it's a different word, it's another one beginning with D. This book is devoted to my wife? No, there's another word beginning with D. I've forgotten it. So sorry, that's a bad example. I'll try and think of that before the end of the class. But yeah, devote yourself to means give yourself fully to some kind of project or goal. Now, you might say that this answer is related to something else. You might say that this book is based on the film. You might say that these answers are founded on, are grounded in. So all of these expressions, they all mean to be connected to in some kind of way or to be based on. Based on and founded on are quite similar. Connected to is more like linked to, related to. Okay? Dedicated to. That was the one I was thinking about for books. Dedicated. I knew it was another one beginning with D. Yeah, usually in a book you see this book is dedicated to my children or something like that. But I suppose it could say devoted to my children, but it's a bit weird. No, dedicated to is much better. Okay, if you aim at a target with your bow and arrow, you're shooting at that target. But you can also say our company is aiming at a new sector of the market, meaning we are directed towards that new sector of the market. So it doesn't have to be just with a gun or a bow and arrow, it could be with something else. But always remember that aim at or throw at or shoot at, yeah, it means at that person. Throw something at that person, aim at that person, shoot at that person. It's when you're trying to hit that person in some kind of way. Now, detract from. This is very often used when a teacher is marking an essay, and the teacher might say that the content has or the argument, the lack of rationality has detracted from the mark. Yeah, that it means to take away from the mark simply because it's not rational or something's not logical. Usually used for arguments, for poorly formulated arguments. So if there's something irrational, a contradiction in the essay, you might say these contradictions detract from the conclusion, meaning that, you know, the contradictions make the conclusion weaker. They dilute the conclusion, they detract from the conclusion, they make it less rational. If you cash in on an opportunity, you profit from that opportunity and you start raking in the cash. You start raking in thousands of dollars or hundreds and thousands of pounds. So don't forget these ones which we've done before, which mean to claw in a lot of money, to rake in a lot of money. If you object to something, it means you disagree with something. You think that something is wrong or incorrect. So very often in essays at university, we have to object to certain positions and we have to put forward our own positions. Yeah, put forward and argue in favour of our own positions. If you say that this restaurant caters for vegetarians, it means it has vegetarian meals on the menu. But you might say this course at university caters for beginners, meaning that it's ready to take on beginners. It will cater for beginners. It will teach you from the very beginning. So this is very flexible, this one, to cater for. My lessons, I try to make sure that my lessons cater for all students of all ages, more or less. So I must admit, with complete beginners who are perhaps only 3 or 4 years old, I'm not sure that it would be best to have Skype lessons. But anybody above the ages of 7 or 8, I'm certain I can make some lessons to cater for those age groups, and I already do have a few students from those age groups. Now, to contend with difficulties, problems, to contend with something that's hard to cope with, to deal with. Contend with basically is a formal way of saying deal with or cope with or face up to a particular problem. So perhaps you might say the poor in this country have to contend with floods, disease and famine, something like that. And that's a lot of different problems to deal with. Okay, if a business hives off the HR department, the human resources department, it means it sells off that department. Usually they sell it off. It could just mean to separate that department for some reason, to separate that department from the rest of the building, from the rest of the business. Because to hive something off means to separate it from the business, usually by selling it to someone else, by selling off that part of the business, maybe by farming out that part of the business to another country. Now, if you say this person heads up the HR department, it means he's in charge of the HR department. So to head up means to be the head, to be in charge. If you say that the new product that we are launching, the new product that we are bringing out is expected to reel in a lot of new customers, to bring in a lot of new business, to drum up a lot of business. We had that in another phrasal verb lesson as well. So to bring in or reel in customers, business, that kind of thing. That's when we usually use these two. But remember that you can bring in a new law as well, or a new piece of legislation, meaning introduce. So that one can be used in a couple of different ways. The factory may turn out 20,000 items per month, whatever it is. I'm not sure what the item could be. It could be anything. But you can say the factory turns out 20,000 items a month. The factory churns out 80,000 items a month. So we looked at churn out before. There are a few with churn. You can churn something over in your mind. You can also say that the kids often play football on my grass and it churns up the grass. Churn up is also possible. And it means to destroy, especially grass, churn up the grass. You could also say churn up the furniture maybe, but no, grass is best. You can say that the dog churns up the grass, the cat churns up the grass. Very often used with grass, that one. But churn out means produce. And so if there is a prolific writer who churns out a lot of books per month, that means they write a lot of literature. And I try and churn out a few phrasal verb videos every month, as somebody commented on my last video. And yeah, that's a good example. It was very aptly used in that sentence. So if you bring out a product, you launch a product. If you firm up the details in the contract, it's exactly the same as iron out the details in the contract. To firm up means to make something more solid, more concrete. You could also firm up arrangements, which maybe you wouldn't iron out, or maybe you would. But when you firm up arrangements, you make them more concrete. You make sure that both sides understand exactly what the arrangements are. If you buy out another company, usually that means you buy out all the shareholders by buying up all the shares. So they're certainly connected. They are related to each other, buy out and buy up. If you deal in arms, you sell arms, you sell weapons. If you deal in art, you sell art. So that's quite an easy one, I think. And if you sign someone up, well, this is usually used for football teams or sports teams when they sign up a new player. But you might also sign up a new student, and that student signs up for your classes. They register for your classes. But you can sign up for weekly emails from a new website that you've found or something like that. It basically means register with the website so that you are on the email list. Okay, that's a lot of phrasal verbs. Now's your time for questions rather than earlier. I imagine that most people with questions have already gone. So thanks very much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate your support, and I hope to see you all soon.